What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with reactions to the classics, and today we got another ACDC full album reaction, this time Powerage, brought to us by our friend and longtime supporter of the channel, Carl. Thank you, Carl. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the patrons who make this thing go. If you'd like to support us in any way, check out the Patreon link below or the Patreon link on the end screen. Now, for Carl, I'm running all the Bon Scott-led ACDC albums, so this is number 4. Go check out the other 3 after this one. Just type ACDC in there, or also look in the ACDC playlist. So a little background on this one. It's their 5th studio album, released in 1978. Band's first album to feature Cliff Williams on bass guitar. The Powerage, it's a hard word to say, right? Sessions officially got going in January of 78, stretched over a period of about 8 weeks. It was ultimately the final Bon Scott era studio album the band recorded with the team of Harry Vanda and, of course, George Young, who produced all of the band's albums up to that point. George is the older brother of Angus and Malcolm. He and Vanda had enjoyed their pop success with the Easy Beats in the 1960s. The feeling from Atlantic in the U.S. being that a more commercial producer, and they get one heck of a commercial producer, but I'll save that for the next one, might do wonders for the band's profile in the lucrative American market. Many of AC/DC's early albums were altered for release in other markets, and this practice continued with this album, although it's the last one. It was the first LP to be released nearly simultaneously in both Australian and international markets, and the first to use just one cover image for both. So when you look at the first 4 albums, you're going to see an international version and an Australian version on all of them. This is the last time you're going to see that. The first UK pressing includes different mixes than all later versions, most noticeably on Down Payment Blues, which excludes the bluesy coda heard on later pressings. Kicked in the Teeth, the opening chord was omitted, but is present on the UK vinyl version. And What's Next to the Moon, which omits solos and backing vocals heard on later pressings. I'm just telling you all this because who knows if you have this album on vinyl, what version of this thing you have. The European vinyl edition included Cold Hearted Man, a song that was not previously released and would not be released on any other AC/DC album until 2009's AC/DC's Backtracks box set. In some territories, the album omitted Rock and Roll Damnation due to a rush job in getting the LP to pressing plants in time for the release. This was not yet completed. In its place, Cold Hearted Man was added, and the rush mixes are different from the finished mixes that were used thereafter. Well, initial sales were somewhat disappointing. Powerage surpassed its predecessor, Let There Be Rock, which I'm not going to ruin the review for you, but it was fantastic, but reaching number 133 on Billboard's Pop Albums charts in the U.S., eventually achieving platinum certification. The album has remained a favorite of Malcolm Young, who was quoted in AC/DC Maximum Rock and Roll as saying, quote, "I know a lot of people respect it. A lot of rock and roll AC/DC fans, the real pure rock and roll guys. I think that's the most underrated album of them all." In 2005, it was ranked 325 in Rock Hard Magazine's book, The 500 Greatest Rock and Metal Albums of All Time. Kerrang! Magazine listed it 26 among the 100 greatest heavy metal albums of all time. That is some high praise. Angus said in 2014, "After we done Let There Be Rock, Powerage was probably us experimenting a little bit. My brother George said, your first album and your second album, these are a lot of songs you've had for years and you've worked on them or refined on them. So when you hear them, you go, that's a band playing that." And that's what he wanted for Powerage. That's about the closest we ever got to an experiment. As always, all tracks are written by Angus, Malcolm, and Bon Scott. If you haven't been with us before, the music will not be in the video, but it'll be a Vimeo link below. So click on that and follow along with us. Let's kick this thing off with the opening track, Rock and Roll Damnation. It was the final track recorded during the sessions after the record company persuaded the band to go back into the studio and come up with a radio-friendly single that could garner some airplay. It had some success, giving the band its first charting single in the UK, where it peaked at 24, features hand claps and maracas, and does not have a traditional guitar solo, which is very odd for an AC/DC song. I'm going to have the lyrics up as always. Thanks again, Carl. Rock and Roll Damnation. I mentioned this on their other albums. They are perfect at sequencing albums. Like, this is a fantastic opener. It's quintessential AC/DC, right? Bon sounds great. The guitar work, even though there's not a guitar solo, is just fantastic. The song is only 3 minutes, 37 seconds. It definitely works as a single, but in just singing that, you've kind of put yourself in Rock and Roll Damnation. That's the life you chose, like, in a good way. So a really, really good way to start off this album. Now we go to Down Payment Blues. I've had a few of those in my life. Down Payment Blues, one of the best written songs of Bon Scott that I've heard so far. Like, absolutely stand out. I like the little bit of blues in there at the end, the guitar work, but it really, this one, and you're not going to hear me say this about AC/DC because I've been on the other side of it too, on the songwriting, but the songwriting is excellent. talking about how he's got all this money. He might be talking about himself or some sort of version of himself. I know that it's evil. I know that's got to be, no, I ain't doing much. Doing nothing means a lot to me. Living on a shoestring, a 50-cent millionaire, open to charity, rock and roll welfare. So he didn't have any money, even though he's really famous. I got myself a Cadillac, but I can't afford the gasoline. And then, of course, I got shoes, holes in my shoe, and I'm way overdue, down payment blues. And then later on, get myself a steady job, some responsibility. Can't even feed my cat on Social Security. Hiding from the rent man. Oh, it made me want to cry. Sheriff knocking on my door. Ain't it funny how the time fly? Sitting on my sailboats, sipping on my champagne. Susie baby, all at sea. She comes into it earlier. Say she want to come again. Feeling like a paper cup floating down the storm drain. Got myself a sailing boat, but I can't afford a drop of rain. Just really, really well written. A fantastically done song, just all the way around. Arrangement and everything. This album it started out quite well. Next up, we have Gimme a Bullet. Give Me a Bullet. A good song, good guitar riff. Just kind of what I would say is a normal ACDC song as we're going through things. Give me a bullet. So give him a bullet to bite on. He doesn't need drugs, he doesn't need alcohol. This girl's left him, right? And he just needs her back. Give him that bullet to bite on to kind of get over that pain. Next up, to end out side one of the vinyl, we got Riff Raff, a word that's not used a whole lot, although there's a great artist, great band called Hooray for the Riff Raff. But otherwise, you don't hear Riff Raff that much. My dad used to use that term all the time, and never in a nice way. All right, Riff Raff. This song is over 5 minutes long. This thing is just a showcase, right? For Angus and Malcolm on the guitar. That's what this song's all about. You're a minute and a half in before there's even, or longer before there's even any vocals, extended solos. It's just like, hey man, we've got through the whole first side and we haven't really let you guys cook. So that's what it's about. The song writing itself doesn't matter. It's just one of those songs where you see their brilliance. Now we're going to kick off the second side with Sin City. Is it about Las Vegas? I don't know. It could be any Sin City. All right, Sin City, a very rare thing for an AC/DC song. Cliff Williams getting to show off that bass guitar about halfway through there. You just don't hear it because Angus and Malcolm are so good on the guitar. These types of songs, you have to have bassists, like they form a background there that you're not going to get otherwise, but it's not usually showcased. So I thought that was really good. It was about Las Vegas. I mean, it'll come out and name Las Vegas, right? But kind of talking about the haves and have-nots, the high rollers, and that's normal people that go there, right? I mean, talking about ladders and snakes. Ladders give, snakes take. Rich man, poor man, beggar man, thief. Ain't got a hope in hell, that's my belief. Fingers Freddy, Diamond Jim. Two real people. They're getting ready. Look out. I'm coming in. And then the chorus, I'm going into Sin City. I'm going to win in Sin City where the lights are bright. Do the town tonight. I want to win in Sin City. And I thought it was also interesting. Bond didn't change up his vocals at all when we got to the chorus. He just sang it straight up. He didn't pump up the chorus like most artists do. So it's a good way to start off side two. Next up, we got What's Next to the Moon. What's Next to the Moon? Interesting lyricism here. He's tying her to the railroad tracks. His girl, he wants one more love from her. He just wants her to love him. And then kind of like how it talks about the train conductor and what he must be thinking as he sees her tied to the tracks. And then he ends up running over her and he's trying to frame it up as it was a suicide and not a murder. Interesting subject matter. It works with the guitar work and everything. Next up, we got Gone Shootin'. Bon Scott said this song is about, quote, a lady who took it upon herself to do whatever she wanted to do. All right, Gone Shootin'. This girl's gone shooting, but not in the way you might be thinking about on shooting. There's no guns involved, boys and girls. There's a needle. Well, so she's shooting up the heroin and kind of just talks about how her demise, how he used to love her, but now she can't get away from that. I stirred my coffee with the same spoons as the spoon she used to warm up the heroin. Gone shooting, my baby's gone shooting. Wrapped herself around like a second skin, backed in her favorite nag, but she could never win. I took an offer in another town. She took another pill. She was running overdrive, a victim of overkill. So when he's saying gone shooting, I don't know. She might be dead. I mean, I can't really discern that from the lyrics, but nice blues-based little kind of up-tempo riff there. And I saw it was also later included for the soundtrack to Beavis and Butthead Do America. And the film's director and series creator, of course, Mike Judge, would later admit that the show's theme was heavily inspired by the song's bass line played backwards. Now I'm going to have to go back and listen to that theme again. Just the theme to the TV show, right? That was uber famous if you were alive and well and watching MTV in the 90s. All right, we got two songs left. We got Up to My Neck and You. That riff was infectious. They got a lot of 4-minute songs, upper 4-minute songs, and AC/DC songs in particular don't seem like 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes, I guess because of that guitar energy in there. Up to My Neck and You, Bond's just letting her know that he's been up to his neck in a lot of different things, a lot of bad things, in trouble and strife, in misery for most of my life. I've been a fool, and you know what a fool can do. I'm telling you, you come along when I needed you. Now I'm up to my neck in you. That's the chorus. He's been up to his neck in pleasure, pain on the railroad track. The railroad track, coming back to us, right? Coming back to us. It appeared on an earlier song. To cruise on, waiting for the train to cruise on through. I figured my time was due. It was way overdue, but you pulled me through, and I'm up in my neck and you. Whiskey, wine, wishing. So kind of a cool way of telling her, look, I was in trouble and then you came along. We're going to finish this album off with Kicked in the Teeth. My man Bond has been kicked in the teeth again by a two-faced lying woman, right? Sometimes you lose, sometimes you win. Kicked in the teeth again. Ain't this misery ever gonna end? And I've been kicked in the teeth again. Tells us he should have listened to his ma and her advice about this girl, but really a showcase for the instrumentation again, right? I mean, I thought Bond sounded fantastic on this. That was a really good vocal performance, but also obviously Angus and Malcolm on here. But the shout out to Phil Rudd on the drums. I haven't talked about him, you know. He's a really good drummer. Like, it's just that the guitar work and Bond on AC/DC stuff just overwhelms everything. Not in a bad way. They're just so outstanding that it kind of puts everybody else on the back burner, but it doesn't mean they're not doing their job and doing it well. That's going to take me to my favorite tracks. Pretty easy on this one. I'm going to go Kicked in the Teeth. The last song was an honorable mention just because the instrumentation was standout. I'll go Gone Shooting as a fave. I like the blues kind of vibe on that one. And then I thought the standouts were easily the first two songs, like easily Rock and Roll Damnation and Down Payment Blues. Now we're going to get to my overall score. Better than their first two albums. Not as good as their last album. So I'm going to be at a 7.75. Repeated listens, I could see how I could get to an 8 on this album pretty easily. And I thought it was way better than, you know, High Voltage and Dirty Deeds done cheap. Not as good as Let There Be Rock, but that album was outstanding. But I could see how this thing could grow on me for sure and get a higher score. Well, we still got one more album left in this journey of Bon Scott, Highway to Hell, which Trey and I reviewed almost 5 years ago. So I'm going to do it. I've never done it before. I'm going to do a album review, an album reaction. You know, that's when we're doing reviews and we're playing the music. I'm going to do a revisit, right? A revisit to this album because I've only ever listened to it once. Well, I listened to it several times because we reviewed it. We used to listen to them several times then, but I haven't listened to it since. And now I have a totally different context. So I feel like I've got to finish it out. So we're going to get the outstanding Highway to Hell next. But let me know your favorite songs down below. Give Carl some love for bringing this whole series to us, not just this album. And until next time, guys, I will see you.